I just thought I would hop on a live for a little bit. My kids are in school and Ellie is napping and, nope, sorry. Um, I'm sorry, something is going on there. But Ellie is napping, and so it's nice and quiet. So I just thought while I am working on some stuff, I would hop on a live and show you guys how I cut up my patterns. I just have a pile of stuff that I need to get cut out. So I'm going to be cutting out with my projector, and while I get set up here, that is what I'm doing. So I have, let me just show you my cutting area. So I have this table here that I use for cutting my patterns. And through this, if you have any questions about anything, let me know. But, okay, why is this popped up on here? No. Okay, I think it wants me to go. Okay, it wants me to go like that way. So I guess we're doing vertical. I don't know. There's a bunch of random stuff. We had birthday parties for both of my daughters this weekend. So, well, it was one party, but it was combined and family here. So I haven't really been in here. There's socks on my table. But I have a Epson Ultra Short Throw projector. This is the 475 WI, which the WI, I don't know. It means something with the screen. I don't know. But it's the 475. There's a whole bunch of them. I bought it used on eBay. I believe it was a gentleman named Kent Todd. He's in the Projectors for Sewing group, and he sells a bunch of refurbished ones for relatively cheap. I think I paid about $140 for it, which they're usually around $100 to $200 depending on which one you buy. When you buy them, this model, there's a couple different models of it, but they all do the same thing. And you don't really need anything fancy for just sewing, doing your patterns with sewing. And they do have some that have Wi-Fi. Mine has Wi-Fi, but I've never used the Wi-Fi. They say it can be kind of finicky, so I just use my HDMI cord and plug it in. So while I get set up here, I'm just going to clean up this stuff. Look how cute this is, though. Let me show you this gummy bear fabric. I got these two. I think they had one other colorway. I think it was like purple and or pink and teal or something, but my daughter picked these out at our local quilt shop, and one for her and one for her brother. She wanted some sort of bag, so I have to figure out what I'm gonna do with those, but those are really cute. I'm not doing anything with them today, but I am going to be cutting out, and my projector is not plugged in. So the thing with the ultra short throw is that it doesn't need to be mounted, which is why it's called ultra short, because you don't need a large area. So with most projectors, you have them up above and then they project down, and that requires it to be mounted on some sort. You have to have high enough ceilings for most of them. They do have some that are just called short throws where you don't need as big of a range, but there's all kinds of different things that involve what projector works for you. But the most universal is the ultra short throw because it doesn't need, all it needs is to be set down on a table. And I raise mine up a little bit. It's actually just a cheap plastic tub, but it's about 4 inches probably. And I raise it up, and that just kind of makes my cutting area bigger. My projector area, my cutting area stays the same, obviously, but it just opens it a little bit, and it covers pretty much this whole cutting mat area, which is great, and it's about perfect for what I need. And so I plug it in, and I don't have my mouse. I don't really like using my touchpad for this, but part of what is so great with these projectors is now they have new software, and it's a website called patternprojector.com, and it's this website, and you can see I'm on it now. There's the option, you pull it up to calibrate. It used to be really hard to calibrate your projector. You had to do all kinds of things, especially the ultra short throw, because it is at an angle, which can make it kind of hard to do. Now you just pull up this website, you put in the measurements of your cutting mat or your cutting area or whatever you want to project. I just have it set to 20 inches by 30 inches. It just is a good measurement for my mat and area, and it's easy to read the numbers. You know, this mat is a 36 by 24, but I like to just keep it a little bit smaller than my mat, and then I can, if I start on 2, it just goes to 32. So all you do is you find the corners. I need to move my stuff off of there so I can see it. You find the corners and you just drag them and line it up with, I'm trying to move this a little bit, it's getting out of range of my screen. Line it up with your cutting mat, and it's just a 1-inch grid. And then I'll take this corner up here and line it up. So I have it on the 2, I'm going to line it up with the 32, and then come down here, and it's on 23 up there, so I have to line up the bottom with my 3-inch. And this actually is so easy that every time I cut with my projector, I do recalibrate it, especially because honestly the setup is a little bit janky and not very stable. So I will just check that every time, just like I said, because it is so quick and easy to do. And so that's all I did. And then you just want to make sure that the 1-inch lines line up. And like I said, this is easier with a mouse. Maybe not for you, but I don't have great control with the touchpad option. But once it is calibrated and you have all your lines lined up, then there's just a button, you hit project and open your PDF, and you just have to find your pattern. So most pattern companies provide you with a projector pattern. Really, it's my opinion, but if there is a pattern company releasing patterns in this day and age, PDF patterns, and they don't have a projector pattern, I won't buy it, because projector patterns are honestly the easiest ones to do. I design my own pattern, so I have firsthand experience. It's basically a copy and paste. There's a little bit more to it than that, but you just put it on there and it's good to go. So if they aren't providing that, I am not going to pay to do the work myself to create the projector pattern, which you can do that. And I know there's a lot of like older patterns before projectors were a thing, so that's a little bit different. But in a lot of those companies are updating their patterns so that then they have the, sorry, I'm trying to find my pattern that I need. Then they have the projector patterns for the old ones, and you can use AO files on your projector. They're a little bit finicky though. They just, you get what you get. You can't move it around. They don't have a big border. So it does make it a little bit harder to work with, and especially when pieces are on multiple pages, like it cuts off, that can make it hard as well. But so then all you do is you pull up your pattern, and in this software, it is already calibrated, so it's going to be the right size. And most patterns, they will have a calibration grid on them, just kind of like they have I'm trying to find this one. This is a Lonely Kids one. They just have a little one in the middle somewhere, but they will have a calibration grid, and if they don't, run from that pattern, because it needs to have that. Here it is. It's just a different color. So this software, it allows you can change the colors of your background. So you can see here how it's kind of green right now. And you can change them to a couple different color options. So like depending on your fabric that you're using, you can have different colors. You can bold your lines. So if your lines aren't dark enough, you can make them darker. You can make marks on it. So if you need to shift things, you can make marks. There's so much you can do in this, and it's free, which is great. So the first thing I am cutting out are the Lowland Kids um, slim flares, and a lot of what I'm doing is little kids items. So these are gonna fit on my cutting area pretty well. I will be doing stuff for my daughter who she's in like a size 6'7". So like this, you probably can't even see um, the lines on there because this is like a light blue. So now I'm gonna change the color of it, and it's still not super dark, but you can see those faint red lines. And then once I put my fabric down, it'll be a little bit better. And the other thing with this, like there's people who they can only cut with a projector at night with all of their lights off. And I have all of my lights on. It's daytime. I do have my blinds closed. We have 2 windows in here, and I never have issues cutting my patterns out, which is great. Because then I don't have to worry about, only cutting at a certain time of day. So we're going to get started. So if you're on here, tell me, are you a sewist or a seamstress? You're just interested in sewing, you just saw this, hopped on. What if you are a sewist? What are you working on? What's your latest project? Give me all of the deets of what is going on in your life. So I am doing the flares, and these are the bigger pairs, so these do fit on it. You can rotate your pattern. So the pattern was vertical, and now I rotated it so it's horizontal, so it fits on my cutting mat. And you can even like rub your mouse over the words and it'll zoom in. Sometimes that's one of the hard things with projector patterns, especially like on smaller items. The print is really little, and you have to like sit and you would have to zoom in real close to read what it said, or pull up a different pattern, different file, read what it said, and then zoom back out to your calibration, and it just made it really hard. So okay, these are my fronts and the back. So cut at the higher line for elastic. Okay, I think I want to do the elastic waistline on these. So I am going to cut out my patterns. And sometimes I'll use, I have washers that I use as pattern weights. The one thing with the ultra short throw, like I was talking about with it coming down from this angle, it does have a really bad shadow compared to from the top. And it's just kind of something you learn to work around. So like when I'm cutting here, you can see my hand, anything on this side is gonna block it, or anything with any height is gonna block your lines. So you need something really flat for your pattern weights, or whatever you're putting on the top of your pattern, so that it doesn't block your fabric. And the other thing is with this is you really aren't, I prefer using the rotary mat or the rotary cutter and the self-healing mat. Especially you have to use it. There's really no way around it with the short throws. You're going to cut directly from your projected pattern, because if I were to take my scissors and you put it under your fabric, it warps your angle, and that can be a thing too with you use really thick fabrics. So you have to be kind of careful with that, and like I said, it's kind of a live and learn type thing, and using your mat, you can kind of find where your lines hit. But that is really the biggest downfall to the ultra short throw, is that angle and how it does distort things. So that's something to think about, especially if you are a big scissors person. One thing that I do like to do, I don't have to do it too often, but I know a lot of people have to make drastic alterations to a pattern to get it to fit, and you can do it digitally, using, sometimes you can use Adobe Illustrator, but it depends on the pattern, and typically almost always with any pattern you can use, oh, what's it called? I can't even think of what it's called right now. Let me see. I have it on my computer. I've used it like twice. Oh, Inkscape. And you can put the pattern in and you can manipulate it. But that can be really hard, especially if you're not super tech savvy, to do. And so, like I said, I've never done it. Really, typically I only have to add length to my patterns, which is really easy to do on a projector. And so I don't worry about that. But if I do have to make big alterations, or I want to mash patterns or something, I would project my pattern and then just take either wrapping paper or parchment paper, something of that sort, and trace it, cut that out, and then use that pattern piece to make my alterations. Because that's one of the biggest things is people are like, I can't use a projector because I have to make alterations and I don't want to deal with it, and all this stuff. And that's really just not true, because I mean, yeah, you're still using paper. So I mean, typically people say use a projector because it saves paper. So you're not technically saving paper by doing that, but you are saving ink. You're saving printer paper. You can use a cheaper paper. You can use, you're saving tape, your time. You don't have to piece together this whole thing. And it just is really kind of frustrating when people try to use those excuses. I get it, because they don't understand the projecting patterns, and that's why. And so I need to flip my fabric over. Okay. So that's why I like to do these kind of things, to help people see really what having a projector entails and how easy it is to use a projector, and how accessible, even if you're not tech savvy. Like I said, all you have to do is pull up that website and line up your pattern pieces, or line up your cutting mat, and start cutting. And that's the other great thing too, is that you buy your pattern, and within minutes you can be cutting it. That's one thing people are like, how do you sew so much? Like, how do you have time to sew? It's because I spend my time actually sewing. If I had to sit and piece together a whole pattern, one, I would just dread that process. Two, you have to have the right kind of space to be able to do that. I mean, I know you can do it on the floor and stuff, but it can be hard. And then you use the window. It's hard to see and get your pieces lined up, and it's just something that I always dreaded with sewing before I got my projector, and wasted a lot of time. I mean, think about the time you spend piecing together, printing off one pattern. I would say maybe at least half an hour, and in that time, like, I could sew like 3 pairs of these pants in a half an hour if I really just sat down and got to work with it. All right, so I finished up these. These were only 4 pieces. They have an elastic waistband. So I am done with those. And then I am going to, so I'm going to put those in a pile. I'm going to cut out the same pair of pants for my 1-year-old daughter. Excuse me. So hers are going to be a 12-month. So these are a lot smaller, and hers, I'm going to do, I don't know. Let's see. I am just going to do this fit. Okay. Okay. All right. And if you have any questions, just about me, sewing, whatever, feel free to let me know. I will save this and post it. So if you hopped on late or have to go, I know it's kind of weird time, but like I can't really, it's hard to try to plan these with my life and my kids and nap schedules that aren't really schedules and all kinds of things. So that's why I just hopped on here this morning when I had time. And I think I'm going to stay on maybe about 15 more minutes and just keep cutting. And I do have a video on my channel of setting up this projector, and I go over a little bit more in depth using the software and things like that. And then I mentioned that projector sewing group, Facebook group, and that is a excellent resource for finding a projector that'll work in your space and all kinds of tips and tricks from with documents, and there's like a flow chart of how to pick out the pattern or the projector that you need and all kinds of things. So I will, once I get off this live and save this video to my channel, I will put that down in the description so that you can check that out if you need to. And I think it's just projectors for sewing is what the group is called, I think. And it has like, I'm pretty sure it has a purple like icon for the profile picture. And it has, I don't know, I think there's like 80,000 people in there. So yeah, so, but that's another thing is it can be very dependent on your space of what projector works for you, which is why that Facebook group is so nice. So see, I already cut out those for my daughter. The smaller your pieces, the easier it is, just in general. I mean, I think you can kind of say that for cutting out any pattern when you're sewing because, you know, it's just less material to work with. You have a smaller space. So those were really quick. And then, let's see, next I am going to cut out, this one, okay, I think I should have enough here. My sister just had a baby, and her husband is a baseball coach at UTSA, University of Texas, San Antonio, and their colors are orange and blue. So she asked me to make little baby Mia a cute little outfit that she can wear to games. And I actually don't have very many blues or oranges. She is little and they run big, so I'm going to do a 3-month. But so you can see all of these lines on here. This is the calibration grid for this pattern, and I always double check that with my pattern. Okay. And so I am using, I put this blue tie-dye rib knit, and then the orange. I'm doing the Cusco from Little Lizard King, and making a cute little bubble romper for her. And yeah, so we're going to cut out this one. I did think I had some more blue options. I didn't have a lot of orange, but I have this was one I used for something else. And since it is just baby, I didn't really want to buy, or baby size, I didn't want to have to order fabric. I might make another one. I have to order some fabric from Raspberry Creek here shortly. And I love Raspberry Creek because you can order half yards, which are like perfect for baby sizes. And that's not very common online to be able to do half yards. So that is one of the reasons why I love Raspberry Creek. And this is actually not laid out very well. But they have really cute like gingham prints that you can get. And I have like pretty much every color except blue or navy blue. I have light blue, but not navy blue. So I thought that would be really cute to do. And I don't think they have an orange one, but I thought navy blue checks would be cute with something. So I might get some of that the next time I order. Let's see. How long have I been sewing? So I actually learned to sew very, very young. I don't know how old I was. I remember, I know I was in elementary school probably. It might have started a little bit before that. My mom was pretty big sewist, seamstress. She started really young. Her mom, my grandma, sewed a ton. She sewed most of their clothes when they were little and taught my mom to sew. My mom did 4-H sewing, and so she taught me to sew. And I remember, I don't know how old I was. My dad still has it. He actually still uses it. I should have Addie make him a new one. But I made him, he wanted a pillow, it's a tiny pillow for the car to rest his arm on the door. When he was driving, we would go on lots of road trips and things, and he wanted a little tiny pillow. So for Christmas one year, I made it, and it's like this big, like a 3x8, maybe 4x8 size pillow. This very small, and this thing is like, woo, woo, woo. It's not square at all. But I remember making it, and I laugh at how crooked and things it was. But like I mean, I did it. My mom had me do it by myself, and I was probably, like I said, 7 or 8 maybe at the time, and sewing on my mom's sewing machine. And from there, my love for sewing just kind of grew. My sister never really took to sewing. She was more the cook, baker, into those kind of things. And so then I also remember then my mom one year, and this was a little bit older. I was probably in like second or third grade. We sat down and we got a pattern from Joann's, and we made myself some capris and a couple dresses that I wore all the time. Then we did fun prints and all kinds of things. And so I remember that, and I just have tons and tons of great memories learning to sew with my mom. And now, so then, as I grew up, I became very, very involved with volleyball. And when I say very involved, I was doing travel volleyball. I started in 6th grade and kind of just took over my life in a good way, but it just really didn't leave much time for anything else. And then in school, I was in student councils and National Honor Society. As I got into high school, I was working as well as playing volleyball and in school and travel volleyball. And I just didn't have very much free time to sit down and sew. So then I went to college to play volleyball. Well, not to play volleyball, but I was playing volleyball in college, which, if you know anything about college sports, that is a huge commitment and time commitment. While I was in college, I was not only playing volleyball, obviously going to school to get my degree, and I got a degree in sport management, which that's a story for another day. But I was took my sewing machine and I was all gung ho. I'm gonna have time to sew. I brought it. I'm gonna, start a little side business, fixing up kids' clothes, doing some alterations, and I honestly think I got my sewing machine out maybe once um, when I was in college. And that's actually the same sewing machine I have today. My mom bought that for me in high school. And I guess I will say I forgot, kind of reignited my love for sewing. My high school, I went to a very big high school. I had almost 1,000 kids in my class. And I love going to big high school. But that just, if you know anything about sports, that means that it was very competitive. So, which is why I had to put so much time into my volleyball and things like that to be successful. And I always wanted to play in college. So, but with having a big school, you always have way more opportunities than the smaller schools. So, we had tons and tons of really neat class offerings. And one of those classes was sewing. And in that class, it was a beginner sewing class. So I was way ahead of the game, but it was really fun. I learned some new techniques and things with my teacher. She was amazing. And that first year, we had 4 or 5 patterns that were the whole class did, and we each had to sew up that. We could pick out our fabric and everything, but we all had to sew the same thing, and which was fun. But then just so happened my senior year, they had enough kids to let me see, I gotta find my pattern piece, create a second year sewing class. And that class was for then obviously the people who had sewn before, taken the first year of sewing, and I couldn't sign up for that class fast enough. And that class, since we had our sewing skills, what we had to do was we had to complete just a certain amount of projects by the end of the year. And each project we had a skills sheet, and each project had to have a certain amount of those skills included in it. So, I don't know if it was like 5, but you had to do a zipper or buttonholes or a rolled hem. And there was just different things involved so that you were meeting those skills. And I actually sewed my prom dress that year and my winter formal dress that year. And I had so much fun doing that. I sewed a couple other things as well, obviously, but that was just so great because it allowed me to have the time to sew. And we had block scheduling, which meant we had classes every other day. So our classes were about an hour and a half long. So it was really nice. We could sit down, you could socialize with other people. You had your teacher there to help you when things went awry. And it was just really great. And that was my first experience, my prom dress. We created a muslin. I kind of designed it a little bit, found patterns, used those, mashed them, and kind of created my own bodice and did all of those things. Now, it was a little bit stressful getting it done on time, but I did it and I loved it. And it was just so fun to be able to do that. And then I'm gonna start wrapping up here in a second, once I'm done with this story. But so then I went to college, was gonna sew and was on this sewing high from school, and got to college, didn't sew, and then after college, my husband and we got married right after college. I was, still playing volleyball. I was coaching. I was working at the school. And then I was coaching club volleyball in our town, and didn't have a ton of time. But I knew I wanted to, when I got engaged, I knew I wanted to wear my mom's wedding dress. And I won't really take much credit for it. My mom did most of it. But we redid my mom's wedding dress to be my dream dress, and turned out absolutely amazing. Like I said, my mom did a lot of it, ripped off all of the lace and did all of that. And then, after graduating and getting married, um, I sewed a little bit more, but I was still working full time. I was coaching, I was training for competitive weightlifting, just as a kind of a fun thing on the end of my college volleyball career. I needed something to do. And I was working in sports, which can be kind of, if you know anything about that, time consuming and kind of erratic schedules, and just all kinds of things that, weren't leaving much time for sewing. And at that time, I also had not discovered PDF patterns. And those are game changers because you can just buy them, print them off at home, and be done with it instead of having to go to the store, pick them out. It also opens up a world for more pattern options, and excuse me, and it's just way more accessible than store patterns, at least in my opinion. And oh, excuse me. Um, so then when COVID hit, well, I had my daughter, and I had started sewing a little bit more, because after I had my daughter, I didn't go back to work. So I started a hair bow company. I was making hair bows and hair accessories and headbands. So I started sewing more there. And then that kind of escalated. And then COVID hit. And I really think then, I got my sewing machine out and my scrap fabric, making masks for my husband. So just like a lot of other people. Um, but I had been sewing before that. But that was really just what kicked it in. I got my sewing machine out. And then it pretty much never went away from there. So um, now here we are. I am still a stay-at-home mom with 3 kids. I got back into coaching this year and am loving it. And it's just a great coaching is it's honestly a great way to get out of the house. If you're a stay-at-home mom, sometimes you just need a way to get out of the house without your kids. And I just really enjoy um, that. So I'm doing that, and it really doesn't take away from anything. Am gone a couple weekends, but again, super nice. I get to go sit in a hotel by myself and relax. And I work on my patterns typically. Um, but yeah, so here we are, and I don't know when I'll stop or if I will. But anyways, now I'm gonna cut out. This is the last thing I'm gonna cut out here real quick, and this is just a basic dolman. But I know I do have people ask, like, how do you line up stripes? And it's really easy. Basically, how I would do it with my pattern, like a paper pattern. So you can see this is stripes. Let me bring this here. The stripes on this fabric. This is another one you can see from Raspberry Creek that I love. Um, I'm making this one for my nephew. He is obsessed with diggers, and I've had this fabric forever. I bought it for my son, but I didn't end up using it because he was only wearing anything Spider-Man. So what I do is I just find a point on my pattern and line it up. So like here is my cut line for my hem. So I have it lined up on this blue stripe. Sometimes I'll use the sleeve cap spot, the bottom of the arm side, my shoulder points. I just kind of do all of those. So this is my back bodice. So I'm going to just cut out my back bodice. And then when I go to do my front bodice, I will line up those same points with the same pieces of the pattern. And I also will sometimes, so I'm going to take this one off. Sorry. Oh man, sorry, my nose is very itchy. Right, so here is now my front one. You just shift it over, and I am gonna just cut off these tails so they're not in the way. Take my pattern. I'm gonna flip this. This is not a directional print, so I am gonna flip it over so that I can save some fabric here. But I'm just gonna find my bottom hemline and line it up with a blue line. Now, if you had like a more designed stripe, like something like this one, where you have it, you would want to make sure that, like this one, I couldn't flip upside down because then my stripes would be start with pink on the top. So you got to be kind of careful when you're doing that. Just make sure it lines up. And then I'm gonna just check my other spots, and you can also lay it out on top of it and kind of match it up. Now this one is pretty easy because the pattern piece for the front and back are basically the same. They just have a different neckline, which makes the stripe matching a lot easier, but this is just kind of a general showing you how it works. And then cut it out. And then you're good to go. So stripe matching is really about just as easy on a projector as it is on a paper pattern. And yeah, so I think I'm gonna have enough for this. I don't know. I might have to use different color for the bands and the cuffs, but that'll be okay. So then just like the sleeves, then I'm gonna just line up my wrist point and make sure my armpit points of my sleeves are matching and just cut. And sometimes I will use like my ruler. Sometimes like here, if I'm doing sleeves and stuff, like if I need an opposite or something, flipping my fabric over, I will just use my other sleeve or my other piece and just flip it over on top of it and cut it out that way instead of having to shift my fabric around, shift my pattern piece, get it lined up. Sometimes it's just easier to make it fit. So there's just so many things you can do with your projector, and they're just the best. So yeah, so I don't think I'm gonna got to do different fabric for the cuffs and the neckband, which I don't have, so I have to find something. But I think, whoa, that is all for now. I think I'm gonna wrap up here. I have to go get my son from school in just a little bit. And so I'm gonna clean up this stuff and get some chores done. And hopefully I'll be able to do this another time where I let you guys know beforehand so that we can kind of be on. But you can always watch them after if not. And so if you have anything you want to see or with sewing or patterns or projectors, just leave a comment and I can get to that in a new video. So make sure you subscribe and you can see all my other videos. I have lots of tutorials, all kinds of things. And yeah, that is all I have for you today. So happy Monday. Have a great day, a great week, and go sew something.